Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Startup Sense podcast. This is your host, Jonah Lupton. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a great episode coming for you. Our guest today is Matt Stapleton. He is the co-founder of a company called Capshare. They're actually based in Utah, which is clearly becoming a little startup hub. I think this is our fifth or sixth company out of the Utah area. Matt is one of four co-founders on the company. They've raised just under $3 million from a bunch of investors, angels, and VC funds. Draper Associates is one of their investors, as well as the CEO of Skull Candy. Capshare essentially helps startups and investors manage their cap tables. If you don't know what a cap table is, you're about to find out. So let's welcome Matt to the show. Matt, how are you?
Great. Thanks so much for having me, Jonah.
You got it, man. How did I do with the intro? Did I screw anything up?
No, I think that was perfect.
Cool. So tell us about Capshare. What exactly do you guys do?
Yeah, so we manage who owns what in companies. So your cap table is a list of everyone that owns shares in the company, what types of shares they own, and if you're a restaurant or a hardware store, you may have a cap table that's just, hey, I own 50%, my brother owns 50%, something like that. For your more startup that's issuing options to its employees or has investors that are investing and getting special rights and privileges, it gets much more complex. And so we'll track all of that, give you tools for planning in the future. We'll do a lot of like tax and compliance, nitty-gritty stuff like that. But that's really where Capshare focuses, is on kind of those companies that have raised money, issuing options to their employees, that type of thing.
What's the alternative? I mean, I'm guessing it's probably Excel spreadsheet. Is that correct?
Yeah, a lot of people on Excel spreadsheets. When we started, there were a couple companies doing what we do, but they only focused on companies like right before they go public. Interestingly, what we do is kind of a normal thing on the public side. There's companies called transfer agents that will keep track of the so-and-so sold shares to this other group. New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ doesn't actually track that. It's these other guys. So there's some of those for the late stage, but for companies like what we focus on, it's kind of Excel.
Okay. And I mean, I know your pricing is pretty inexpensive per shareholder. So maybe tell us about what is the pricing right now and what is a typical client paying you guys?
Yeah, so they scale. So we do $2 per shareholder per month for the core product. So if you're a couple guys looking to get something that is just going to be compliant, Capshares can be really inexpensive for you. We even have a freemium tier for people with 20 shareholders or less. So we'll lock down some functionality, but with less than 20 shareholders, we have a freemium tier that'll get you kind of everything that you need. And then it scales up from there. Our average company is paying us a little over $100 a month. So you can do the math from kind of a shareholder perspective. We really like your Series A, Series B type company.
And this makes it probably much easier on HR, where they can just direct an employee to Capshare to see what they own, what's vested. Cost basis maybe. I'm not really sure how much detail goes into this. I'm guessing probably a lot, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly right. I mean, cap table will often bounce between HR and like a CFO. Neither of which are often coming to it as cap tables being kind of the number one thing they're good at. And so Capshare can take a lot of that where they're kind of unsure on some of those details and make it easier on them and make it really easy to share that with the employees, which becomes kind of a retention tool for them.
Now, you shared something with me in the pre-call that was pretty interesting, is that you guys are now cash flow positive. So maybe, you've been on this ride for about 4 years. I think you guys started the company in March of 2013. So 4-year anniversary here. Tell us how you guys got to cash flow positive, because a lot of SaaS companies never do, or it takes them even longer than 4 years.
It's been a big focus for us. So we actually founded, before Capshare, we founded a services company. We did valuation work and would value some similar type companies, but it was services. It felt like your law firm or something like that, where you have analysts, associates, principals, that type of thing. And I think based on that background, we were used to, that company had never really raised money. We were used to having to kind of eat what we kill. and bring in revenue and live on it. And so we had that background. Now, SaaS is nothing like that. And one of the biggest kind of eye openers for us is just understanding just how different building a software business is. But that said, we came from that background. So day one, we were pretty focused on revenue. We were always pushing for how can we monetize, where, our conversion funnel, where's the biggest drop off, what do we need to do on pricing? That's always been a big focus for us. This last year and a half, we've really, really made it a goal to get to profitability. We like it because it gives you the ability to play the game and push to make yourself more and more valuable to your customers for a long time. Once you're profitable, you can keep at this for 10 years without needing any funding. So that was a big focus of ours. And we did a lot of creative things. Sorry,
where did the focus come from? I mean, was the the emphasis on getting to profitability, was that driven more by the founders or the investors?
It was the founders.
Okay.
We get quite a few people, both within our existing investors and others, interested in investing. My co-founder, Jaron, spent 6 years on the VC side as a principal at a VC firm. And based on that, we wanted that ability to kind of not need the money. So it really came from our side.
Okay, gotcha. And I mean, in terms of getting to profitability, was that more of a result of growing revenues or cutting expenses?
Bit of both.
Okay.
A little bit of both. And we've done some creative things. We use an employee stock purchase plan, which you usually don't see in private companies. You see it more on the public side, but basically gave our team the ability to decrease their paychecks in exchange for stock. And so we've done some creative things like that just to help us keep our cash position as best as we could. So we've done some of those things on the expense side. And then at the end of the day, it kind of has to come from revenue growth. Because if you don't have that revenue growth, you can cut your way to profitability. If revenue's zero, then that's a profitable company if you have no expenses type of thing. But a lot of that was definitely revenue growth.
How do you guys acquire your customers, and how has that acquisition strategy changed over the last couple of years?
Up front, we did a lot of outbound kind of outreach. Utah, you mentioned at the start of our call that Utah's had a lot stronger of a tech scene in the last few years. Utah, interestingly, has some really strong sales teams. And so it's pretty easy to find really good salespeople and people who have strong opinions on sales. So we had an inbound sales team, outbound sales team. Anymore, we get a lot of lead volume. Some of that's word of mouth. We've done a lot of content marketing. But we do that kind of mix with an inbound sales team has given a lot of our growth.
Okay. Any idea what you were paying to acquire a customer maybe 2 years ago versus today?
It's probably gone up some recently, but we'll pay. So our lifetime value to customer acquisition cost, just as a multiple right now, is about 4 to 5x. So lifetime value of a customer for us is about 4 times what we'll pay for those customers.
Okay.
We'll pay usually around $600 or $700 to acquire a customer with that inbound sales team.
Okay.
And which is high. Our price point helps on that, but we have a lot of people around here that'll talk about B2B sales. If you have an inside sales team, you really need to average more like $500 a month to justify a sales team, and we're quite a bit lower than that. So that's been a trick for us eternally. One thing that's helped, though, cap table software is incredibly sticky. Once you onboard,
I was just about to software, I was going to lead you into that. Right. Once you get them, the cap tables remain in place and keep getting even more complicated as they raise more money, right?
Yeah, and we've had a few conversations with investors or potential acquirers who look at our churn numbers and say, "Are you guys off a decimal point here?" Because it's just our churn is really, really good.
What are some of the feedback? What's some feedback you've heard from customers once they've been, say they are about to get acquired? Like what does an acquiring company say about their use of Capshare? I mean, are they happy because it just makes everything so much easier to look at and digest?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot that we've tried to do to, pre-cap share. A lot of companies would issue like physical paper certificates, and then an acquisition is a process in like rounding those up, which could be a pain. And there's some pretty big liability if you can't find a few of those. With something like Capshare, you don't need those. Capshare is your official records. It can be shared with your investors. Then you can just communicate on that. And come acquisition time, you don't need to go through that roundup process. So yeah, people are really enthusiastic. When we started, we got a lot more pushback on like, why wouldn't I just use Excel here? And now things like that are kind of making it like, no, this is what you have to do. You'll actually kind of look bad. I've got that from a company a month ago where they said, no, at this point, you kind of look bad unless you're using like software for your
Right.
capital.
Oh, for sure. Right. If you're the CFO of a company with, a couple hundred employees and you're using Excel, first of all, you're probably doing 10 times the work necessary. But yeah, it looks unprofessional if you're, out there talking to potential acquirers. What are some of your favorite horror stories of companies that weren't using software or Capshare to manage their cap tables and they were trying to do it themselves? Any good ones that you can share? I'm sure there's a bunch.
Great question. So, particularly noteworthy stories. We talked to the inside counsel for a public company who mentioned a particular situation they'd just gone through where they really liked a company, were going through the process of acquiring them, and they got to the cap table and there were like 12 different versions. The law firm had one, the CFO had one. None of them reconciled. There were promises that had been made that never made it onto kind of any of the closest to official versions. And because of the liability that would have been of potential like lawsuits after the acquisition, they walked away from the deal despite really, really liking the tech and everything.
Wow. Yeah. What happens in a scenario like that where there's a bunch of different versions? Is there one version that overrides all the others, or is it just a blended average?
They've got to go through some sort of reconciliation process. And so often that's going to be big legal fees going through like the individual PDFs that got signed and try to rebuild the cap table off of, okay, we signed this agreement with so-and-so for X number of options, that type of thing.
This is Jonah Lupton, founder of Jewel and host of the Startup Sense podcast. At Jewel, we help entrepreneurs and startup founders build, launch, and grow their companies by providing superior technology, marketing, and consulting services. We help clients of all sizes, budgets, and industries. We put our clients in the best position to raise capital, grow revenues, hire employees, and maximize their profits. For more information or to set up a free consultation with our team, please visit our website at jool.net. That's JOOL.net. You mentioned before content has been one of your customer acquisition strategies. What type of content have you guys had the most success creating, or what's been some of your most popular pieces of content created?
We've had a lot of success on kind of what you'd call long tail content, very specific, answering very specific questions. Capshare is kind of by its nature very tax and accounting centric. And so there's a lot of those questions that have been answered by other people, like accounting questions about how to expense your options that have been answered by other people, but they've been answered by accountants whose vocabulary isn't your typical like founder vocabulary.
Right.
And so we've had a lot of success taking those things and both making them more consumable, easier to look through, while also not ignoring what's legally accurate and having kind of that depth as well. Those have been really successful for us.
I mean, I'm staring at the Crunchbase screen right now, which is typically what I stare at during these interviews so I can see your investors and how much money you've raised and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking something a Crunchbase Pro was something that you guys probably use in order to reach out to founders, right? And investors.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll do a lot of that. And then, I mean, at this point, we're actually one of the odd, unexpected things around getting cash flow positive. You say no to a lot of things that you should be saying yes to, as far as like, hey, this is a good ROI, but it's an ROI over a year and a half, and we really want to hit that profitability. And so one of our problems right now is we have so much lead volume. We don't have a sales team that can keep up with all of our leads. So
Oh, wow.
yes, we'll use like a Crunchbase Pro or things like that. But at this point, our sales guys per salesperson are receiving about 4 times the leads they were receiving a year ago, just from some of the kind of things we've put in place around marketing and conversion funnel. We've got our VP of marketing, frankly, is kind of incredible.
So you guys can't do a lot of hand holding through the sales process. I mean, some of these leads have to convert on their own.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. What are you able to name any of the clients that you guys are currently working with? Some big names that we might recognize?
Yeah, so I mean, on the company side, Lendio is a big client. Payphone is a big client. Matchable actually uses us. Um, and then we'll work a lot with funds or accelerators to help their companies. And so we've done work in the past with 500 startups, helping a lot of their companies and doing like training on site with them. Helped Y Combinator before. Angel List, we've done some things with some of their clients. So those are a few that would kind of be more noteworthy.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I know Mark Andreessen has said software is, going to eat the world, and it is pretty true. I mean,
Yeah.
so many of these companies, such as Capshare, make these tasks so much easier than what they were 5, 10, 15 years ago, where people would have to do all this work themselves with spreadsheets and God knows what else they used to use. What
Yeah.
what advice can you share with us? I mean, for any founders out there listening to this podcast that are about to embark on starting a company and they're going to have a cap table for the first time and possibly investors, what can you share with us to help us not make the big mistakes?
I mean, on the cap table kind of financial side, I would say software is absolutely going to catch mistakes. That's been one of the biggest focuses for us, is just put in alerts, tax act, TurboTax type things to kind of catch like, hey, just so you know, you're issuing, options below their fair value, or there's this thing called an ISO 100K limit that you really need to kind of be aware of, those types of things. So I'd say software in general is going to be a big deal. The other thing I would say is law firms look expensive up front, and some of them absolutely can be, but there's a lot of great kind of startup focused firms that'll either defer costs or have like a $2,000 incorporation package, which looks expensive compared to some of the like incorporation online type of things. But if you're planning on raising money and growing into the kind of big company we all hope to be, those can be some of the least expensive costs you could possibly pay relative to the value you're going to get.
Absolutely right, and not getting proper legal advice up front can certainly come back to haunt you somewhere down the path, down the road. I've
Yep.
seen that. I've seen that many, many times. Yeah, I was actually on the phone this morning with an attorney, and it's a law firm that really only works with startups, and so they essentially do that. They defer their legal fees until you raise some capital, or at least you have some revenue.
Yeah.
You're not. They don't want to burden you with big legal bills up front. Tell us about Utah. I mean, like I said in the intro, I've had 5 or 6 companies on the podcast that are from Utah, Salt Lake City, and Provo, and I think there's one other name in there. You guys are in where? Sandy, Utah?
We are. Yep.
Okay.
Sandy, we're kind of right in between Salt Lake and Provo.
Okay. I mean, why build this company in Utah and not, Silicon Valley, for instance, considering that a lot of your companies are probably in the Bay Area?
Yeah. I mean, there's a few things that have definitely gone in our favor in Utah recently to make it a lot easier to build a company. I mean, for us, a lot of the team was initially from Utah, but there was definitely a decision: do we move or not? Do we go move out to the Bay to tackle this? And I mean, for the last 40 years, Utah's kind of had one big tech company every decade. And then the last 15 years, I think we have 11 unicorns, kind of billion-dollar plus private
Wow.
tech companies right now, which is really kind of abnormal given the size of the market. But that's been huge. It used to be in your neighborhood, you talk to someone and they say, "Oh yeah, I work down at the, hardware repair store," or something like that. And now I talk to someone, they're like, "Oh, I'm an account manager at Domo or one of these other big companies." And so that made it a lot easier. There's a lot more developers here. Sales has always been kind of incredible in Utah. And so while the developer market wasn't as formed, sales has always been super strong. But a lot of things have hit at the same time. And then cost of living means that my team is probably living much better on kind of 30 or 40% of the paycheck. Kind of solid discount of 30 or 40% compared to if we're located in San Francisco. That's been big for us.
Yeah, for sure. Right. You guys can be a lot more capital efficient up front or in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Talk to us about some of your investors. So I mentioned you guys have raised about $3 million. Some well-known VC funds in there, like Draper Associates. And I'm just sitting here doing a little bit of research, and I see that Brendan Wallace is one of your early investors. He's a
Mm-hmm.
very successful entrepreneur, and he's actually the guy that runs Otter Rock Capital.
Mm-hmm.
He's in a bunch of billion-dollar unicorn companies as well. So how did who did you first raise money from, and what was your approach, and how did you guys get him really interested in Capshare?
Yeah, I mean, the very, very first. So early on, I mentioned that we had that services company that we had founded. And so the first year or so of Capshare's life, we were actually living off of the cash flow of that other company. And then even after that, our Jared, my co-founder, put in kind of the first 400K of hard cash. And that helped us to get to a level of traction that was kind of pretty rare first time going out for money. But that said, we had a number of relationships. I mean, the Draper Associates relationship, he'd been a client and a friend of mine for a long time. A lot of our other investors were either friends of ours local here, or I mentioned Jared 6 months in venture capital. And so some of his old partners there put in a lot of that money as well.
I mean, I can see where this is one of those companies where you mention to an investor and they all know the problem,
Yeah.
right? They totally understand what you guys are trying to do since they deal with it on every company they make an investment into, dealing with cap tables and who's managing it. And how
Which
does
is a
it work
good thing and a bad. It's a good thing and a bad because they can scrutinize it a lot better than, some of the things that they take a look at.
True. How does it work on the investor side? If I'm an investor and I have, call it 15 portfolio companies and each one of them is using Capshare, do I have some sort of a dashboard with all 15 companies listed and I can click on each company and kind of see the cap table?
Yep, that's exactly right. There's a collected firm view where you can kind of get access to all of your companies that you've gotten access to, and you can share that within the firm and be able to kind of review that in aggregate. And then there's a few tools for estimating things like valuation across your portfolio and stuff like that.
Okay. And I would assume that the founders and maybe HR and CFO and a few other financial people probably have access to the full cap
Mm-hmm.
table, but most employees can probably just see their own stuff.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Okay, cool. What's been the biggest challenge the last 4 years for you guys?
Um, I mean, learning how to do software was a learning curve for us. And so often I'll chat with people and kind of chat through some of the financial stuff because that's what we do. But I feel like learning how to do product has been big for us. And so we made, our first developer was a great guy, but fresh out of college and had taught himself to code, but I think he was like a history major. And there were mistakes in the code that we're still paying for.
Oh, geez.
We now have, I mean, we've worked with several members of the Ruby core team that kind of wrote the language, helping to clean up and get us to a really solid state. But that's a cost that just takes, I mean, the amount that we saved early on, we've paid for kind of 4 or 5x now in just learning how to, test everything and make sure. And now we're in a great spot. I mean, we'll push code 5 to 10 times a day, and we've got continuous integration and full. That's been huge. But yeah, I think some of the hardest things have been around just learning what poor mistakes we made early on.
I mean, and how would you guys have done that differently in the beginning? I mean, just try to recruit a higher quality person.
Yeah, one big thing for me is we jumped in and we knew this space coming from kind of a finance background. So we jumped in and tackled like the hardest problem. We said, how do you distribute who gets what in an exit? And we jumped in and we started coding that immediately. And I would, if I were to do this again, I would spend like $50K upfront on design rather than dev, and do a lot more talking through kind of how's the user going to use this, what is it going to look like. And with that basis kind of built up front, it would give developers, even like the developer we hired, a much better roadmap to not make a lot of the mistakes he made.
Right.
Now,
Okay.
I'd probably look for a little more professional of a developer next time around up front. But I think doing that design work, and you want to, when you start a company, you want to day one start building something, start coding. And that's something that I'd kind of put the brakes on next time around.
How big is the Capshare team right now?
17 people.
17, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. And you guys are all based in Utah?
We've got developers in Washington and Oregon, and a small sales office in San Francisco.
Okay. Are you currently doing any hiring right now?
Yeah, I mean we've looked at a few developers in sales really at this point.
Okay.
We've got a goal to kind of double the dev team over the next year, having hit that cash flow profitable thing, and so that's going to be a big push for us.
What does your ideal salesperson look like?
There's a lot of places around here that'll go for your kind of intense sports competitive salesperson, kind of the bro jock type mentality.
Right.
And
Super alpha male.
and we can't quite do that because our sell is so technical. We're getting into kind of really, really financial stuff. But the first thing that I look for in a sales guy is someone that just kind of bubbles personality. Their personality just kind of oozes everywhere as positive, just an amazing, likable person that loves people, super extroverted.
So someone that has an accounting background or understands accounting principles and stock options and all that stuff, I'm sure. But plus the personality and the ability to go out and find business and close it. I mean, it's
Yep.
right. So it's like a type A and type B personality put together.
That's right. And you can steal away your kind of iBanker types for that pretty easily. Right now, tech is really attractive to people that used to be kind of all like, oh no, iBanking is the way to go. And you'll find those types that are that kind of type A personality, super smart, super outgoing. And we've done a little bit of that in the past.
What else don't we know about Capshare that you'd like to share with us? Any fun stories or any best days or best moments that you can recall?
Fun stories. I mean, one thing, I guess culture for a second, one thing that's been big for us is we've kind of always believed that if you hire insanely smart but teachable people, it'll make for a good culture. And that's been a positive for us. We've got a lot of people. I've never worked with smarter people than the group I get to work with right now. And the trick with getting that many smart people in the room is you gotta have people that can say, wow, I was completely wrong. And so that's been a big thing we focused on as well. And that makes every day fun. I mean, startups are hard, as everyone kind of learns along the way. And we feel like sometimes you just get kicked so many times that success at a startup is learning that you can kind of just get up and keep walking forward while getting kicked. And you're like, it's just not a big deal. That's what happens. And so there's plenty of that, but I would say most of the kind of joy for me is just getting to work with the team I do.
And I mean, that kind of actually feeds into this last question, which is what motivates you?
The team.
Yeah.
I
I feel like that would
definitely,
be your answer.
yeah. And I'll say, I mean, there's definitely those low moments. And I never would have believed before starting this how motivating it can be to just know that you have these people you love and their families. And the family thing definitely starts aggregating where it's like, no, it's not 17 people, it's like 100 people that are relying on this being awesomely successful. And so, yeah, that's definitely a big motivation for me.
And what do you think is the end game for you guys? I mean, you've raised VC money, so whether you like it or not, I mean, you probably have to think about the end game, or at least the investors want to know what the plan is. So, anything can you share with us what your thoughts on that are?
Yeah, I mean, I think with profitability, one big reason that was a focus for us was to give us optionality on the end game, which means that response to your question is a little bit scattered on my side. I think we've got a lot of good options. I think right now we're really focused on kind of delightful user interaction. Like I mentioned before, learning to kind of take a product focus took us a while to learn, but something we've kind of really taken to heart. So at the moment, I'd say we're just really focused on building the app over the next couple of years. But I think end game for us could look like a lot of different things as far as acquisition or even kind of long term running the company. Either IPO is always something that you kind of don't say. It's almost a bad word at this stage stage of the company. But one big thing we focused on is giving us kind of that option to play the game for a long time.
Right. I mean, that's the whole. Once you're cash flow positive, your options start to expand.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty much all I got for you in terms of questions, man. I guess the last thing is, how do we connect with you online, whether it's social media or email, someone wants to reach out to you? And then, of course, obviously, if someone wants more information, they can go to capshare.com, right?
Yeah, I mean, capshare.com is a great way to learn about the company itself. I'm always available. My email is just Matt, M-A-T-T, at capshare.com. Happy to chat with people there as well.
Fantastic. And that salesperson, would they be in Utah or San Francisco?
We've looked at both. I
Okay.
think we're open to either.
Okay. Maybe that person is listening to this show, or maybe they see the post whenever it goes live. But
Yep.
I always try to help with recruiting. If I think of anyone, I'll certainly let you know.
I appreciate it, Jenna.
Cool. Thanks, Matt. It was good talking with you today, and look forward to staying in touch.
You as well. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.